Hello, and welcome to another week in the Kingdom. I am Chris, your humble community servant, and I'm here today with Eric. Would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks, Chris. I'm Eric Daniels, and I'm marketing. As everyone can probably imagine, we have most of the developers working hard trying to make the game as awesome as possible. So when it comes down to crunch time, I think thinking is, hey, the marketing guy's probably got some time. So let's
we can do things. We're forward facing, so
yeah, and he's not going to affect gameplay. So
the entire marketing department is right here right now. This segment, we could call this a meeting, I guess.
We could.
All right, so Eric, what's been going on this week? What have we been working on? What have you offloaded to me? Like, what's been going on in the marketing realm?
Well, it's been a good, productive week. You know, one of the things that we're kicking off this weekend are a couple of play tests where we're going to be observing some fresh eyes, some game players coming in with varying levels of experience coming into the office, playing the game fresh, watching how they interact, how the user interface is, how the feedback is to the player, their response, story elements, making sure that what's supposed to be communicated is being communicated, and the gamers are understanding where the story's taking them and reacting, limit confusion, things like that. So that's important for us today. And then of course there's a number of interactions that we're doing with gaming publications and trying to get the word out that 11/24 is the big day.
It is.
A couple days before Thanksgiving, so everybody's got their eyeballs on 11/24 and trying to make sure that we have everything in order for an awesome launch.
Well, I'm convinced this is the title to play on Thanksgiving, because 20 hours is a good marathon game. Like, that's something that you could start realistically Thursday night and marathon, or do like 2 or 3 sittings. Be like, yeah, I'll do 2 10-hour sittings and just power through.
I think it's a good idea. I could see you're hanging out with the family, maybe about the time the football games come on, towards the evening. Hey, honey, I'm going to go check on in the garage.
Yeah,
and
you just
20 hours later, you're done with the game.
You're done with it. You're ready to see what we have in store for the future. I always like to talk about past game credits, and I think most interestingly to the people watching would be that you were working at AMD for a significant amount of time. That's pretty cool.
I did.
You were the hardware and not the software end.
It was fantastic. So focused on the enthusiast gaming platform. I was there for over a decade. Got to work on the hardware side with a variety of game vendors, just because that's a key element when it comes to providing game hardware. And then it may be a little known fact that I also worked at one of the first graphics companies. They're still around, actually, Diamond Multimedia. Mm-hmm. We did some things very early on with NVIDIA and their first 3D chip. I was looking on Twitter and saw some posts about Street Fighter and so on. That was the first real playable, compelling game that was provided on that proprietary 3D engine. We used to run out at lunch down to the demo room and play that, one-on-one.
That's
for
awesome.
all that time. Yeah, it was a fun game.
Yeah, now we're on Street Fighter 5 coming out in early Q1 next year. So
Making
we've
the
seen
rounds.
a decade of experience, 5 games later, and you're now working on 5. See, it all comes back to that magical number. I was like, also talk about challenges and successes, office gossip, all that fun stuff. Got any good inside info this week?
On office gossip and inside info?
Yeah.
No. Maybe we could make some stuff up, start a rumor or two about one of the Brandons, but probably best. So far, I think most people just have heads down and are working hard.
Powering through,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you try and talk to someone. I'm busy. Yeah. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so as always, I will give you nice plugs in the chat. We are at Kingdom Games ATX on all your favorite social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitch, Steam. We are 5 Guardians of David by Kingdom Games. You can see us on the Community Hub. If you are following us on our Steam community group, which can be done by just clicking the follow button below the slideshow, you will be entered in a raffle to win copies of 5. If you are watching, you may have noticed that it seems to be a recurring theme that I add people to give them their prize, and now I've had 2 people block me. So if you win or you notice people are winning, I might change up the way we grant prizes because the delivery mechanism seems to be an issue. So if you have suggestions for that, please post them in the forums and we will figure out a new way to deliver the raffle winnings, because we're having a bit of issue getting people to know that I'm trying to add them to give them a free game.
Yeah, you just want to give them a game. I think they probably expect that you're some
trade
sales
offer,
guy or spammer,
yeah.
or you're a prince from Nigeria or
Yeah.
something like that, trying to give them $3 million. Or...
No, it's not like that. Just a copy of 5 that we'll unlock on launch day. So please post any suggestions you have for that on the forums, and we will reassess from there. Okay, so this week I'm here with Eric, and Eric is a parent, and what I find really interesting about Eric is he is very hands-on with his kids. Not in the jazz hands sort of way. He doesn't, he doesn't put them on leashes or anything. But Eric does monitor content, and he's very active in all sorts of content, including social media. He's active in, he's a big movie fan, as we all are, TV, Netflix, and of course video games, because they've been your employer for the better part of your career.
And they're awesome.
And they're fun. So this week we want to talk about misconceptions and questions about video games, because as Eric is a parent, and I'm sure some people that would be interested in 5 are parents, or other people, or maybe you want to address questions that your parents may have, and this is a good talking point. So we thought, let's talk about misconceptions and questions about video games. So the first thing we always want to talk about is going to be the idea of what is a family-friendly game, what is violence in games, what is the depiction of violence, and how do parents mitigate that topic, how do we discuss that topic, because it's a pretty recurring trope to have depicted violence, some sort of combat scenarios. In pretty much almost every single game you have some sort of conflict that usually leads to combat. So when you approach the subject of violence or combat conflict, how do you breach that topic and present it to parents? Say, hey, this is what we think is okay for this age group, but maybe this is more a little bit older or a little bit younger. So I guess the first question would be, Eric, is what type of content do you search for when you're discussing games, movies, TV shows with your kids? What kind of content do you search for? It's like, this is meriting discussion before we just dive right in.
Well, so I should probably just start off and let everyone know how old my kids are now. Maybe this will kind of give some insight into my age and stuff like that. But my oldest is now 18, and she's a freshman. Just started at Texas A&M, and
Horns.
then I'm down with the horns.
Yeah,
I had a little bit of a rough go, but
yeah.
And then my other 2, or my wife and I, our other 2. They are 15 and 14. They're just starting in high school. So we've really kind of transitioned to a large degree from being, heavy authoritarian to more influential and kind of trying to provide guidance on what we think is a good idea and what isn't a good idea for them to be watching. But when I think back a few years ago, like when our kids were younger, in that 10-ish time frame, we really leaned quite a bit on, like for instance for movies, we leaned on the ratings. We were probably a little bit even more stringent than what the ratings allowed. Our kids typically watched PG type movies. We didn't really do PG-13 or R for that matter. I think that kind of goes without saying. And then for video games, it's very similar. There's a lot of great information on games before you ever make a buying choice. With the ESRB, they provide a lot of information on what the content of the game is, and they use a couple of words that for me are real descriptive. That use of gratuitous.
Yeah.
For us, I'm just and it's also my personal preference as well. I'm not really a fan, and I don't like seeing games with a lot of blood spurting out and organs popping and intense, realistic combat. I do like entertaining, fun, fast-paced games, but I don't need that element of it. So I'm okay with combat and violence and competition, but I draw the line at, hey, I think you can do things tactfully and still in a very compelling way without really going over the top. And I think sometimes there's a tendency in a variety of entertainment industries to go after shock value, and that's just something that's never appealed to me or our family, and that's one of the things that we draw the line on with our kids. And when I look at them now, they seem to be pretty well adjusted, and they seem to be making really good decisions when it comes to interest in entertainment, the kind of games that they're into. Right now they play a lot of sports games. We play a number of role-playing games. We do some of the first-person shooters as well. My son likes those, but mostly go after teen ratings. Even at this point when they're 15, 14 years old. Yeah,
and it's interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is more like, if you take two, maybe not similar games, but if you look at something like Rocket League, which is awesome, really compelling, and really fun, but it doesn't have to go, it's not gratuitous at all. There's nothing violent about it. So it's not an insurmountable thing, but it seems to be the more that popular tends to go in a certain direction. So it's not an insurmountable goal. It's just, it seems to be the industry tends to go to the model that has been tried and proven, right? I mean, that's what sells. And they are games marketed towards adults, which is also kind of a... do you ever feel that there's maybe a stigma that games are for kids, and maybe that's where it comes from, that maybe people don't think adults do play games as much, and that's why you see a lot of concern about mature-rated games?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it has to do with medium and the type of medium. For instance, for a long time, cartoons and animation, for that matter, were largely relegated to something that kids would be into, and so there was quite a bit of concern as those medium, as they kind of morphed and started to tackle more adult and mature subject matter. Nowadays there's Adult Swim and some other things that are clearly not for kids. But again, it's that consumer mindset of, hey, I'm used to seeing this medium for this type of audience, cartoons for kids. So there's a lot of concern that, hey, let's make sure that it's clear what this content is and who it's for. And I got to credit the gaming industry for taking a lot of steps to make sure, hey, there's a lot of expectations out there that games are going to be really popular with kids. So let's try and provide a lot of avenues for parents, guardians, and other people who are concerned to get the information so they can make an informed decision. The last thing you want is someone, expecting one thing from a purchase and then getting something totally different. I think for the most part, if the packaging and the content is clear, most parents and most kids, for that matter, are going to make a good decision with regard to whether they want to buy it and whether it's kind of their thing, their type of play, their type of game.
Yeah. Speaking of which, why don't we jump into the game real quick? And I'd like to... This actually raises an interesting point that I wanted to bring up. So we are right in the beginning. If you want to take control, Eric, I know you love...
It's been a while since I've had a chance to play. So
I sneak gaming sessions in all the time, but I know you don't usually get the chance. One thing, did we already pass the sheep? I think we did.
Let me go back, because I think it's an interesting opening scene just to take a look.
Yes. Okay. So here's an example of something that would be flagged by the ESRB, and this would be filed under mild blood. This is a remnant of something that has happened in the past. So in a sense, like a crime scene or like maybe an investigative game where there's blood on a crime scene. It's not gratuitous. It's not gore filled or anything like that. It's just we want to get the message across. This sheep has been killed by a wolf, most likely.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I look at this, my first thought is, most people see something like this on the highway every day.
Right.
Maybe it's not a sheep, but it's just something's happened with an animal, been hit by a car, and certainly nothing gratuitous, nothing that's going to be alarming for anybody that pays any attention when their parents are driving the car or when they're driving to work every day. So.
Especially out in Texas, I've noticed that. There's a lot of wildlife that I'm not used to. And if you could just keep going and let's fight a wolf. And I want to show that
I'm going to crush these wolves.
Yeah.
I happen to be a bit of a ranged guy, so I want to get Abishai going here. So I clicked on his icon, and
it's a wolf.
I'm protecting the sheep.
And you can see that, again, when you made contact with a wolf, there's not blood. We do have damage counters, so you do have that player feedback if I hit this wolf. But there are ways to maybe not approach the same game design tactics of how do we provide player feedback. There's a good way to provide player feedback.
Oh man, the wolves, they snuck up on me.
Yeah. And again, when the wolves attack, there's clear animations to see what's happening. They're great animations, but you don't need to see any sort of gratuitous gore or blood or anything. Now, and when we're talking about violence, these sort of things are also flagged by the ESRB. So the fact that there is violence against non-humans, whether that is animals or
we found one of your
aliens,
sheep up by our camp. It was
what
eaten
have
by
you.
wolves. We came as fast as we could.
I just started a conversation with the old shepherd.
saw
Now, because I like the ranged guy, I don't know if you saw, I kind of herky-jerky a little bit with the controls because I happen to know there's some probably there's some other wolves hanging around. So I want to make sure I get to see them and still use my ranged attack. So that's why I'm kind of proceeding with caution,
Yeah.
Chris.
As you should, because the next section is where it ramps up the difficulty a bit.
Something about chores.
And I think something that we had brought up before was an element of something that you search for in games, and I think this one strongly relates to 5.2, but we're talking about what you like in games, and you had talked about rewarding positive behavior and punishing negative behavior as in the game world, in the game sense, in entertainment. Do you want to go into some more detail about that?
Yes, while I take on the wolves, one of the things that's kind of, and it's not just games, it's a lot of different things, movies specifically, television shows, I don't know, there's a sense of justice for me where if you have somebody and they're making bad choices, they're doing terrible things, there should, for me, be a sense of justice that they pay for their crime, there's consequences, and I think that's also a good example for my kids as well. I'm trying to teach my kids to make good choices and see the benefits of making good choices. So when you're watching a movie or playing a game and you have, this deplorable behavior and it goes on and maybe even seems to get rewarded, that to me is just it sends a contradictory message, and it's also just, I'll tell you, just something that I don't particularly care for. So when I'm looking for movies and television shows and games, I'm looking for a sense of justice that, if you get out of line with your behavior or a character or someone in the game or in the movie gets out of line, that there's consequences, that the cops show up, that people go to jail, that that their bad choices result in penalties and bad results for their life. And I think that's good for kids as well, because they get to, as a parent, sometimes you get caught up in discipline and so on. But really one of the key things I've found for my kids is you want to make good choices based on a good set of priorities, a sense of caring for others, that they're not always selfish, not always out for what's best for them, that they're aware of the group and trying to do right by their friends. They treat their friends right. So when it comes to movies, games, and media and things like that, for me, it's important that there is a sense of justice. Just so they get kind of that feedback of, if I'm going to make bad decisions in my life, I need to expect that there's going to be consequences and that things are not going to go well for me naturally, and it's not just a discipline thing. Oh, okay, well, Dad caught me, so I'm going to get punished. Making some money! Oh, and I got a boat. So maybe it's just me. I happen to be kind of an inventory guy. I really like looking equipment over and finding out, the modifiers and bonuses, and again, I have kind of a thing for the ranged guy as well. So I really like the inventory system, and I probably spend more time than others looking at it.
Yeah, you're a gear hound. I'm not a gear hound. I'm like,
sorry, Mother.
I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to spam abilities. I'm going to spam mana. I will not gear out until I have to. You are like, I'm going to gear out every single guy,
step of the way.
every single step.
And I got to say, you got 5, the game is called 5, and there's 5 heroes. It is kind of cool to be able to
Yes, Mother.
work with all 5 of these, gear them out, give them stuff, and control how you want to use each individual player. And they have their natural abilities and affinities, and then of course there's the gear that you give them. And like I said, I'm kind of a fan of the equipping.
Yeah.
Do it every step of the way.
So we've talked a bit about the ESRB, and what I've really found interesting is that the new consoles have integrated so much of the rating system into their behaviors. So if you put an M-rated game into an Xbox, for instance, and it doesn't have the V-chip code activated or the password, it won't run the game, which is a pretty cool feature, pretty nifty. I guess not so nifty if you're trying to play games that your parents don't want you to play.
Yeah, like that ever happens, Chris. Kids playing games that their parents don't want them to.
I plead the fifth on that one.
You never did that.
Well,
Holy smokes! I'm getting surrounded here.
LA Gamer.
Oh, come on!
Our stream because he just got in an argument with his 4-year relationship ended over an argument over Star Wars toys. So enjoy the stream, LA Gamer. I hope it is entertaining for you, and I hope you got good toys, and I'm hoping you got a Boba Fett probably. But
well, speaking of Star Wars, and I think we were talking about this before the whole stream thing started. My wife, who is awesome, already bought our Star Wars tickets, so we are good to go. I want to say it's not opening night, but it's pretty close.
I wonder, that'll probably sell out. There's a couple theories about the sale.
The boys heard the sound
About
of
sales
struggle
of tickets.
that came upon
They
the
don't think it'll
old
break
shepherd
records, but it's
in
going
a
to sell a
fight for
lot.
his
It's really
life with
an
Queen
interesting box
Philistine
office
soldiers.
choice. Either way, so in terms of moderation, and I think it gets into a strange scenario, but I think it's really important when we're talking about RPGs, especially ARPGs like this. They're very addictive.
Yes, they are.
There's always one more dungeon to explore. There's always one more level to explore. Oh, I'll do this after I finish this quest. And then 6 hours later, you go,
Are you okay?
wasn't I supposed to do my work?
Don't you worry about it. There are other
How would
soldiers
you
raiding your
approach the
father's
subject
stores,
of
Abishai.
moderation?
What do we do?
Because games are
We must
addictive.
stop
I don't know if
Yeah.
they're as addictive as
I will not
other
be
substances
able to
or,
do it. I will need your
for me,
help
sugar and candy.
on one
But
condition, that you never
how do you
Abishai's
Little
how do you
Dr. Pepper.
approach that subject? Oh yeah,
Well-
I'm pretty bad with all that stuff.
So, I mean, that's a really interesting point, and I can just tell you the experience that I've had in our family with our kids, and also interacting with other families as well. I think we all have a tendency to kind of latch on to the newest, best, coolest thing, and it's not just kids. You think about grown adults waiting in line to buy, the latest iPhone, and they'll do that for hours. We have Christmas coming up. There are people who are going to do Black Friday and stand in line at Best Buy and other places.
Now it's Black Thursday, too.
Yeah.
It's pretty much Black Thanksgiving at this point.
So, the game moderation, addiction, all of that, it's not a new phenomenon. It happens with all kinds of items, objects, medium. And I will say, I feel like our family and my kids specifically, we've had a lot of different interests. There's a lot of things that we like doing. So I can't really recall a time where the kids have been plopped down in front of a game for hours and hours and hours on end. In some respects, we're a little restless where, if we're going to be inside, after a while, we just want to go do something else, get a little fresh air, go throw the ball around, kick the ball, do something like that. So I know for a lot of parents, metering out time is an issue. I can just tell you from my experience, we've never had to put time limits on games or homework or any of those things. And I think my kids probably get it from my wife, that self-motivation. Because, when I look back growing up, I was not quite as self-motivated maybe as my kids, Chris. So, I've never had to, yell at the kids or have uncomfortable conversations about go do your homework, or you've played too long, or you've watched television too long. For the most part, we hang out together, do stuff together, and I haven't had to, put boundaries on things because they've kind of developed that on their own. We'll play a game for a while, go at it for, an hour or two, and then it's kind of like, hey, I'm getting a little antsy, let's go outside. So if it's the weekend, we'll go down to the park, kick the ball around or throw the ball, just decide to do something else, go in the backyard, go swimming, whatever the case is. So that's one I don't know that I could be real helpful on, just because I haven't had to deal with it very much. The kids.
Although recently I know a certain someone who was playing a certain ARPG the entire day. Yeah, but
well, you mentioned you lose track of time, and it's almost like you were in my living room, Chris, because we were playing, my son and I. And we were saying, okay, we're just going to do this last mission. We're going to find a good place to save and be finished. We'll be done. And I was thinking that it was like 10 o'clock at night or something like that when we finally got done. And it was, I'll just say it was way past 10. I won't say what time was way past 10. I was like, wow, where did the time go?
That was my experience the first time I played Torchlight. It was just like 6 hours. And it's like, how did I... This is...
Ooh, leveled up! Leveled up!
Yes.
I'm having a little trouble. Oh, I'm surrounded.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Come on, baby.
But in light of those getting out activities, there's something that I've done in the past. I haven't done it as much recently because I've actually changed some of my worst habits, but is punishment exercising. You're doing pretty well now, but if you happen to die at this moment, I might say drop and give me 5.
And I could give you 5, Chris. I could give you 5.
Oh, and this happens a lot. When I was a kid, it was Counter-Strike, doing my homework in between Counter-Strike. It's like, okay, here's a loading screen that takes 10 minutes, back in the days on dial-up. On a loading screen, you sit there and say, okay, I'm going to utilize this time to its fullest. So I'm fully supportive of mitigating punishments, or as they will. So if you can't survive this run through the cave, if you get taken out by wolves, well, use that time as a learning experience and force yourself to do some exercise.
So I actually wish I would have thought of that, because I think of one game that my son and my daughter, all three of us, play it quite regularly, and it's a first-person shooter. And my son and I have a totally different approach when it comes to playing those games. He's a, run right into the fray, run full speed, a lot of motion, fast twitch action, and shooting. I'm more of a, hey, let's use some technique, let's stand back, let's not run into something. Let's make sure the odds and, kind of where we are, we have cover, all that's in our favor. So, when I hear you talk about, hey, maybe incorporate some physical activity, I'm thinking to myself, one of the things I could do with my son is, if you die, every time you die, you got to do 10 push-ups or 10 sit-ups or something like that. And maybe that might kind of cool him off a little bit, where we stick together and work as a coordinated team, exactly. Chris. That's what I'm looking for, working as a coordinated team.
Well, when you're playing co-op, that's something you should usually strive for, depending on the thing. Obviously, if it's in certain circumstances, you can just tank everything and power level people, but not usually the best scenario.
I'm just outfitting here a little bit.
Yeah. And my last question for you is something I think we talked about a little. It's hard because your kids are a little bit older, but we do live in a connected world. This is a digital world. There's friends lists and there's lobbies and voice programs and all sorts of communication techniques now. It's like. And there is a large variety of people who play games. There's very young kids. There's very old adults. There's a lot of people playing games together, and very often having a good time together. Sometimes having rage fits together.
The big wolves, they're rough.
Yeah, the gray wolves here. They're tough.
Sorry, I'm totally listening, Chris.
Yes,
I'm totally listening.
I believe you.
I'm dialed in.
Yeah. How do you broach the subject of internet safety and online chat and VoIP and even, dare I say, streaming, since it's integrated with the consoles?
Ow! See, they totally see you're distracting me. Come on, Chris. The big white ones are rough.
Just kill them. Look at that. That was a 2-shot. You just 2-shot a wolf. What are you whining about?
Okay, all right.
You got a 144
I felt a little surprised. Here I was. Let me bust some pots. Let me vent some frustration. So, and I don't know how this is going to sound on the connected side, but we were, and again, I'm going back to when our kids were younger, because like I said, we have 18, 15, and 14. They all have cell phones. In fact, we just had a conversation with our youngest about Snapchat. Oh. And for the longest time, we, of all the social media, that's one that we were not big fans of, because it's very hard to have any kind of sense of what's going on with regard to Snapchat. So I want to say just recently, in the last month or two, we told our youngest, like, okay, hey, you've really shown a level of maturity, and we like who you're hanging out with, and we like how you've handled different elements of social media, whether it's been Instagram, which is most popular for her, not so much Facebook, a little bit of Twitter, but really because we saw her behavior mature. We said, okay, let's open up, and you can start doing Snapchat. And I would say that's probably all of the kids' favorite right now. And I've actually been doing a little Snapchat with them,
really,
as well. Yeah, I'm
surprised.
I'm a master captioner, Chris.
Really?
I take pride in my captions.
I was not going to pitch the Kingdom Games Snapchat, but now is this a preview of things to come, dare I ask? Probably not yet, but who knows.
But so you asked, how did we handle it? So early on, the way we chose to handle it is on a kid-by-kid basis, and just looking at their level of maturity, how they were making decisions, how do they interact with their friends, and also how comfortable are we with their friends. And I would say, for instance, I'll just use our oldest. We got to meet her friends, hang out with her friends quite a bit, felt very comfortable with the people that she surrounded herself with. So we were a lot more open and free with regard to, do this social media, start with Facebook or go on to Instagram or use Snapchat. And again, it was because she showed herself to be mature, and she showed that she could kind of figure out, who were good people to be hanging out with, and people that maybe aren't going to be a good influence. Not that you ignore them, but hey, I'm just not going to allow them to be real close to me. So that's how we handled it. It was case-by-case basis. We were probably a little slower than most parents, and really wanted to wait and make sure that our kids demonstrated that they would be able to handle this. Because I'll tell you, I've talked with a lot of parents. Maybe I'm exaggerating when I say a lot. I've talked to some number of parents that have had, one or two bad experiences with a child and social media. So fortunately, everything's gone well with us and our kids, and maybe because we went a little slower than most, maybe also because we wanted to make sure that they kind of had a sense of how to use it, what good practices are, and what kind of things to avoid. So all of our kids now, I want to say, pretty much use all the social media, and it's kind of down to their favorites, which I think right now is Snapchat.
Well, I think that's, just tagging on what the ESRB does, that's another big part of, I think, the safety features of the consoles. And even Steam has extensive privacy features when it comes to you are not allowed to message people, which has become an issue delivering keys. You have to be friends with people to message them. There's privacy settings that are very, very restrictive. People can't see. Even things like your avatar can be...
There we go. There's the special attack. I've been saving that, Chris.
Yeah. There's a lot of safety features out there as well. So it's something you probably shouldn't be you should be aware of it, but not as apprehensive. So they've gone as far as games like Destiny were designed around this idea that it's an MMO where you can play with a bunch of people, but it's a very closed experience. You can only directly communicate with people that are on your friends list or in your party. So it changes the dynamic a bit that way too, where game designers are actually taking that into consideration. Like, what audience are we looking at, and what kind of communication abilities do we want to give them with other players in the game? And I think Twitch is taking a fair number of steps too with various streamers to be like, hey, here's how you can moderate and take care of that kind of stuff.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Twitch, because just the difference between my son and my daughter. I went home, this is I don't know how long ago, and mentioned to both of them Twitch, and they had kind of an interesting look on their face. And so I asked my daughter, I'm like, do you know what I'm talking about, Twitch? And she's like, you're talking about the dancer on so you think you can dance. No, not that Twitch. No, not that Twitch.
I wonder if that's like a copyright suit.
Of course, my son, he knew right off. He's like, yeah, that's the gaming platform.
This is Ariella's knife. She carries it everywhere.
All right,
we gotta find Ariella here,
Chris. Be in here somewhere.
I fear that something bad has happened.
Jeez, they're everywhere.
Hey gents, we will give you guys a few minutes open Q&A. If you have any lingering questions for me, for Eric, or the studio, just post them in the chat and we will address those.
Special attacks!
In between that, I got a few formalities that we gotta do. So, of course, there are plugs for our social media and our websites, KingdomGames.com, FiveGuardiansOfDavid.com, and on all your favorite social media, Kingdom Games ATX. That is Kingdom Games Austin, Texas, Kingdom Games ATX. The game we are playing here is our beloved 5 Guardians of David, coming to Steam November 24th. We are planning a launch event, but it's a little bit of secret right now. We're not leaking too many details. And some people have asked on the forums about some hype, and we're being a little tight-lipped about 5 right now. But expect to see an explosion of content launching.
Well put, Chris. Explosion.
We have extensive plans for 5. We do have a development roadmap in the works that will be posted and viewable soon after launch, hopefully. But no promises quite yet. we're not getting any questions. Eric, do you have any final words? Is there anything you want to plug? Are you tweeting? Is there
Well, I guess I should probably say I feel like, not to pat myself on the back, Chris, but I feel like I wrote a pretty good blog
that is true.
yesterday. And if people are so inclined, they might want to check that out on the 5 Guardians of David website under the blog menu. I thought it was a pretty good read. I also, you were talking about social media, I also went out, put it out on my LinkedIn and the Kingdom Games Twitter as well. I gotta say, I like the Bible Cache sound. That
yeah, it's very holy, very, very glowing.
What's that?
Heavenly sound.
It's Ariella's water
some good
station. We need to find her quickly.
I gotta say, man, it seems as if the wolves are getting harder to kill, and there's more
You're
of
out
them.
of stamina, so that's
Stinky Stinkerton.
good. Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. I will be back next week. We are talking history with our studio head James. We'll be talking the history of 5, the history of Kingdom, the source material, inspirations for the art, all sorts of fun stuff related to history. As always, we are active on social media, and I'm looking for more people to post on the Steam forums. We'd like to see a little more traffic there and say, hey, let's get this thing kickstarted so on launch day everyone's pumped, excited, they have plenty of questions, or they have plenty of things to talk about. Or maybe you just have some questions and it feels like that's the best place to communicate. Feel free. We also have our general info at KingdomGames.com if you are ever interested in chatting and you just want to send us a quick note. That's a great way to talk to us. If you have press friends, you're a streamer, a YouTuber, we are very open. We're more about enthusiasm and attitude than following. So if you have a small following, but you're very enthusiastic, you love RPGs, you like 5, you like us, we'd love to talk to you. So in that case, send your press request to press@KingdomGames.com. Or no, it's not press, it's marketing@KingdomGames.com, and we will talk to you about press and possibly getting a review copy of 5 to check out, show, stream, make content for, make music, make sounds, any sort of content. We want you to be you, as Eric often says.
I'm surrounded, Chris. I am surrounded. Bread me up. Come on.
And with that, we will talk to you next week. Goodbye from the Kingdom Games studio in Austin, Texas. I am Chris, signing out with Eric, our marketing director.
Thank you, Chris.
You are welcome.
Sorry, I'm a little preoccupied.
Yeah.
I have